This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Pensacola News Journal editorial cartoonist Andy Marlette on this edition of Conversations. Andy Marlette's editorial cartoons may make you mad, or they may make you laugh, but they are sure to make you think. As the editorial cartoonist for the Pensacola News Journal since 2007, Marlette regularly brings thoughtful and sometimes provocative perspective to local, state, and national issues. In addition to the Pensacola News Journal, Marlette's cartoons have appeared in such prominent publications as the New York Times and USA Today. In Marlette's case, being a cartoonist is a little bit of a family business. His late uncle was Pulitzer Prize-winning cartoonist Doug Marlette. Andy continues the family tradition of gathering accolades. He has been recognized by the Florida Society of Newspaper Editors as having the best editorial cartoons on state issues. We welcome Andy Marlette to this edition of Conversations. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it.
When did you begin to get interested in being a cartoonist?
Like I said, I sort of came up, under my uncle, who was really one of the great American editorial cartoonists coming out of the '60s and '70s, and so he's the guy I learned from, and why I'm crazy enough to be doing what I'm doing, I guess.
Yeah. Now, for those folks who don't know, your uncle, Doug Marlette, so which papers did he do cartoons for?
He went to Florida State and drew for the Flambeau, which was their famous college newspaper during the Vietnam era. Then went from there to the Charlotte Observer, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and he was at New York Newsday at one point. But he's kind of been all over the place.
Okay, and so and in your type of business, it's a lot of that's syndicated anyway, so it ends up in a lot of different publications, right?
Yeah. The stuff I do that we see daily in the News Journal is nationally syndicated, so it runs all over the place from the west, out in the West Coast, up northeast. So okay. I kind of never know what's going to show up where the angry email is going to come from.
Well, speaking of that, because you are a political cartoonist, so you, with your cartoons, pretty much make a stand, or maybe a stand's a strong word. You certainly provide a different perspective, which may or may not be politically attractive to the other side. So what kind of feedback do you get?
It runs the gamut, trust me. You do get a good share of fan mail, but the most fun is definitely the hate mail. I mean, that's what editorial cartoons are famous for generating. So I get called some names that we won't say on there. So.
On there.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're thinking when you want to do a cartoon? I mean, so how many do you do a week?
I try to crank out at least 7 a week. I put a heavy focus on Florida when I can, just because Florida is almost a real life cartoon. We're so crazy, but yeah, for the syndicate, we'd like to have 3 or 4 national cartoons for them to offer to other papers throughout the country. So.
Okay, so in your situation, how do you go about it? What's the process? I mean, do you sit down and say, okay, what inspires you to do a cartoon? I guess is my question.
Well, I guess it's kind of like we all do. We get up in the morning and check the news, check the headlines, and see what the big stories are of the day, and whatever's big, you take a swing at it, and hopefully you hit some singles, doubles, and occasionally you hope you hit a home run. Yeah. I'm sure plenty of readers tell you strike out most of the time. But,
Well, and typically speaking, how long does it take you to knock something like that? So you wake up in the morning, and let's just hypothetically you see something is going on that's kind of politically attractive to do a cartoon about. How long does it take you to knock something like that out?
Man, some days are slower than others. Sometimes it's a flash, and as soon as you read the story, you see the whole picture and got the idea, the words, everything comes together at once. Sometimes it's more of a sketching process. You struggle through it, but generally the idea is the harder part.
Right. And
it's probably the same for everybody in every line of work. The idea, fleshing out a good idea, is the tough part. And then actually producing the image, that's generally the labor of it, and that takes, it can take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to, actually draw out the lines. So,
yeah. Since you've been doing this, how have things changed? Because even going back to 2007, just the media industry has changed a lot, and certainly the newspaper business. What have you seen from your standpoint?
Well, it's interesting, you know, cartoonists are sort of an endangered species these days, you know, especially from the days when my uncle was in the business. And he actually advised me against getting into this business because, you know, at some point in the early 90s, I think there was something around 260 to 300 daily staff cartoonists like me in the country working for daily newspapers. Well, you know, as things have taken a financial hit and newsrooms have cut back, you know, I guess at some point they looked around and decided, you know, we don't need these guys who are generating all the hate mail, and so as a result, I think the number today of daily, you know, staff editorial cartoonists is somewhere around 60, maybe 70 in the country. Okay. So it's the profession's really taken a hit in that way. So,
has social media helped you?
I'm actually now. For a long time, I wasn't a believer in social media, but I've come around and I do see the value. For instance, especially with cartooning, because it's by nature it's so quick and agile, and you see breaking news and you crank out a drawing about it. For instance, not too long ago when Leonard Nimoy passed away, it happened late in the afternoon is when it came out on the wire. We heard about it, and being a Star Trek fan, I was able to crank out a cartoon of him standing kind of a solemn, you know, in a spotlight saying, "Beam me up." Right. Very simple image, and it was actually a little rough because I was rushing through it, but put that out on Twitter, and before you know it, because, you know, the world was talking about this and watching this in that particular moment, man, it took off and went everywhere, and millions of people saw it within a matter of a few hours. So
wow.
That's what's neat about social media, I think.
Yeah. Of all the cartoons you've done over the years, do you have a favorite one?
Oh, you know, I have a tough time remembering what I drew yesterday. There was a fun one when President Obama, when he was first elected and the results came in and we knew it was certain. I think my editor gave me an hour to get a cartoon out for the next day that night, and everyone was in the newsroom late, and so I did kind of just a simple black and white piece of him giving the fist bump, you know, his iconic fist bump to the Lincoln Memorial. So,
oh, okay. Okay. Neat. Are there any particular characters that you enjoy doing cartoons with more than others? So in other words, are there any particular personality, politically or otherwise, that you just say, okay, here's something good?
Well, I mean, you know, Obama, like George Bush before him, has great ears to draw. That makes it fun. Here in Florida, of course, I adore drawing Governor Rick Scott. Partly because he's got the same haircut as me, it makes it easy. You know, which also makes bald jokes fair game.
Yeah,
so,
right.
But he's a blast, and Governor Scott's funny because he's so robotic and has very little personality. As the cartoonist, it allows me to project all that personality and cartoonish expression onto him. So he's really kind of a blank slate in that way, and it's so I have a lot of fun with Governor Scott.
Has he ever communicated with you?
You know, I met him once when he came in to talk to the editorial board. I actually gave him a few of the cartoons that were nicer in nature about him, but I have a feeling he's not much of a fan.
Well, because you've been a little rough on him over the years.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the big things I get calls about is, you know, everybody's, you know, why are you always picking on Republicans? And I say, well, in Florida, they're the only ones who have any power. You know, if the Democrats were less goofy, I would gladly pick on them. But, we just don't have any. So you got to pick on the Republicans. Yeah.
Now, as far as in the local area here, any particular local politician or local character that you enjoy more than?
You know, it's been a while since I've drawn anybody locally too, but I have drawn the Sheriff Morgan on occasion, and he's always taking it in good-naturedly in spirit. Senator Greg Evers, I've cartooned him several times with his dealings with the NRA, and Senator Evers, he's always been a good sport about it. So yeah, I have fun with the local guys.
Yeah. So do you find most of the time people are pretty good sports about it?
I think most of the time. I mean, the importance of cartooning is to catch politicians who are occasionally guilty of taking themselves very seriously. The cartoon knocks them right down and in front of the public, reminds everybody that these guys are not to be taken serious. And I find that, you know, most of these guys are normal guys like me and you, and they can laugh at a cartoon of themselves.
Yeah. Now, I want to go back. So how old were you when you started actually drawing cartoons?
I was a kid. I remember, I guess I was a kid in class who could draw, is the best way to put it. So, you know, I remember in second, third grade trading pictures of Bart Simpson for chocolate milks at lunch. So, yeah, I was always drawing Ninja Turtles, Bart Simpson, and, you know, Donald Duck. Of course, all the Disney guys were my favorites. So.
Okay. Did it register with you at that particular time of the power and the influence that your uncle had?
Yeah, we always knew it was special. I do remember the first one that, of course, I didn't get his pictures of Reagan. I didn't know the ins and outs of the Reagan administration at the time, but I knew they were funny pictures. Right. And you know, I think that's the great universal draw to cartoons is everybody's, from children to adults. You know, it really taps into something in all of us that you're just drawn to it. But I do remember in 5th grade when the Challenger exploded, the first political cartoon I really understood the implications of. My uncle did one that became a very famous piece that went everywhere, of a very solemn eagle just looking to the heavens, to the stars, with a single tear rolling down his eye. And even at that, in 5th grade, that really moved me. It struck me, especially growing up in Florida. We were on the playground when we watched the explosion. Oh, wow. And so that's when the power of the art form, I think, hit home in that piece.
Now, you're also writing some columns these days as well. How's that going? Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, it's dangerous, I guess. You're letting the picture drawer, you know, write words, and I think my editor might be crazy, but I do enjoy it. It's funny. It's like I guess it's working out a different set of muscles than you're used to when scratching out the funny pictures.
Yeah, I was going to say you wrote one recently here. I thought it was kind of intriguing. It was talking about marriage is not tough.
Yeah, sailing is.
It is. Sailing is. Yeah. You kind of explained that and kind of what you think of it.
Yeah, I just had my first anniversary, and my brilliant and adorable wife is much better looking and smarter than I am. Somehow I talked her into marrying a cartoonist, and but within our first year of marriage, we almost died on either a sailboat or some sort of vessel 3 times. So everything else has been great, but somehow we've narrowly survived the high seas a few times.
So it's been tough. So that's the great thing about your job, because you can take all these personal experiences and just kind of share them with everybody, either through cartoons or with a column. So that's got to be fun.
Oh yeah, I think you know, the great challenge with the cartoons column is relating, making it about everyone, you know, because we all deal with these things and share in these things, and if you can somehow tap into that, and I think everybody gets it, and that's what makes it, what I do, fun.
Let's put some of your cartoons up.
Okay.
We have some slides of them, and we're going to put them up, and what I'm going to get you to do is just kind of tell us what you were thinking, or tell us what it's all about. So here we go.
It's a great one to start with. This is, of course, my favorite subject to draw, Governor Rick Scott. Notice the haircut. Yeah. And this is, I think this one sort of captures the governor's attitude towards the public and the press and the Sunshine State these days.
So welcome to the Moonshine State.
Yeah, the Moonshine State.
Okay.
This is a little my take on the BP Restore money, which we're still waiting on here in Escambia County. I've had to take in the paper that because it was an environmental disaster, the money should go towards environmental priorities. Right. Obviously, we've had some other interests, as you see here depicted, waiting to get their hands into the pot.
Right. And let's see, and this one here, okay.
Our former Governor Jeb Bush. This is going to be a big year to be the next 2 years to be a Florida editorial cartoonist, with Jeb Bush and Marco in the race.
Right.
Although Jeb hasn't admitted he's in the race, so he says, "I cannot tell a lie. I'm still not sure if I am running for president," as he's raising all sorts of campaign.
Well, I would imagine in a big time election year like what we will be coming up on, and with all the campaigns going on, that's just absolutely got to be a heyday for the cartoonist.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't draw fast enough. It seems like these days.
So, okay, now here's one about Florida.
Yes.
The governor again.
Or this is Governor Rick Scott's Florida, open for business, but of course the governor is closed for discussion.
Okay. All right.
It's a little illustration of our recent state representatives who walked off the job and quit on the legislative session early this year.
Right. Did you hear anything from these guys after this, or from any of the legislators after this?
I did notice that a lot of the state senators were sharing it, and the guys on the other side were sharing it on social media. I think it made its rounds, but yeah.
Okay, interesting take. All right.
This is after Governor Scott's trip to Washington to visit Obama to resolve our health care crisis. He says, "Welcome home, Governor Scott. How did your trip to meet with the Obama administration go?" Of course,
not too well, evidently.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is our governor once again blaming the hospitals for being greedy and profit hungry.
Okay, and then here's the situation with George Zimmerman.
Yeah, it seems like we can't go through a year in Florida without George Zimmerman making headlines. So,
okay, with the Kevlar vest. Okay, and then Marco Rubio.
Yeah, this is Marco's recent speech about presenting his Rubio doctrine of American strength. He says, "What branch did he serve in?" He says, "Student government."
and just so we're being fair across here.
Absolutely.
We're not politically one way or the other here. We're just having fun. So
An equal opportunity offender.
Yeah.
This is the Clintons. Yet again, why it's going to be a fun next 2 years.
I can imagine.
And Hillary says, "I did not have textual relations with that email account." And Bill says, "That's my girl." And the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
Hillary's mantra that it takes a village.
Okay, now I want to move to something that's very serious, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on this program, because I saw your column that you wrote, and the column was also syndicated in USA Today.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more.
Well, this was sort of the morning of the attacks against Charlie Hebdo.
Of the Charlie Hebdo in Paris, right?
Yeah, the Paris massacre, which it's one of those events. Not only being a cartoonist, but I think for everybody, there are no words to describe such horror. That was my taking Woody Guthrie's famous inscription from his guitar that "This machine kills fascists." His guitar being the machine, and the artist, the cartoonist pen being the machine in this case. And in the piece for USA Today, I just kind of wrote how important it is that in this country, even when faced with terror, intimidation like that, it is one of our most core values that we do not apologize for our opinions. One of the great similarities of anyone who would intimidate to silence speech, to stop cartoons, books, whatever it is that there's nobody more intolerant than those demanding tolerance, and I think that was the case for this, and I think in moments like that, it's important for journalists and cartoonists to stand in solidarity with guys like the cartoonists, artists at Charlie Hebdo.
Yeah. If our audience hasn't had an opportunity, they need to Google and read your column about that. It was very well done.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's tough to articulate these things. It's such a.
We did a nice job in the piece.
Well,
Let me also bring up another one. Speaking of that, and unfortunately, this has kind of continued on with what recently happened in Texas, right?
Yeah. This is it's sort of humorous, maybe a slightly dark take on the new stance of the cartoonist. Do you draw, and when do you pick up the brush, or you pick up the heat?
And of course, that was because of the shootings that occurred in Garland, Texas, with the contest that was going on, right?
Yeah. And whether you agree with the contest or not, it's besides the point. There's larger questions about violence in order to silence speech, and it's just it's a scary time.
Do you think freedom of speech is under attack? I mean, outside of just the stuff that we've talked about, but just as a general rule, do you think it is at this stage in the world, and more importantly in the U.S.?
In the historical perspective, I mean, you'd say certainly not any more now than 100 or 500 years ago. There's always been atrocious acts in order to silence dissenters. And whether you're going back to Socrates or Jesus Christ, or there's always a case of unpopular speech being stopped by any means necessary. But the point in free speech is that it's to a certain extent it's always under attack. There's always the threat of those who are willing to stop it. So it requires vigilance constantly. And I like to think that cartoons are an act of vigilance. It's a daily way to exercise that right. And so.
Yeah. Let me bring up another one of an old friend of ours who recently passed away, and you had the opportunity to work with him. I had the opportunity to interview him. He was a real gentleman and just an absolute professional, and that's the late Darrel Bowden. And here's a piece you did with Mr. Bowden, about Mr. Bowden. And that was on the day he passed?
This was our editorial cartoon tribute. It's a tradition of cartoonists to do an obituary cartoon when people pass away, and this was a picture, of course, of Darrel Bowden Way in the National Seashore through the gates of heaven.
Now, were you close to him?
I had the honor of getting to know Earl well and becoming friends with him, and since I started the News Journal. I think my first week there, he came in and introduced himself, and he used to come in every Wednesday to bring his cartoon for the week. He was doing one a week at the time. He'd bring it in, we'd scan it, get it all digitized, and Earl would tell me the old war stories about the News Journal and the gossip around town, and he was absolutely larger than life and one of the greats.
Yeah, he really was. He was a true gentleman. Yeah. Okay, so you've got your sketch pad.
I do.
And I've always been, how fast can you do this, and what's it going to be? So we're going to let the cameras get in position, and you're going to sketch something, or you're going to sketch?
I'm going to draw you.
Okay.
How's that?
Okay. So you just kind of tell us what you're doing while you're doing it, and we'll go from there. So they're going to, I think, get the camera around there where you can see. Okay, there we go. There we go. Got it. So.
All right. Well. Traditionally, good-looking people like yourself are very difficult to draw. But I'll try to manage. So,
okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So we'll All right, we'll start with the hair.
Okay.
Hair's always a good starting point.
You can add a little extra if you'd like.
Okay. All right, a little. Can you see this as I'm doing it?
I can see it on one of the monitors.
All right, don't worry, I'll add more before we're done with it. All right, and then you kind of shape out the face. So you don't have, in your opinion, what are your defining features?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a real good question.
You don't have the big Obama ears or anything.
No, I don't know. Nose, eyes.
Nose, okay. We'll,
Yeah. I don't know. I've never really thought about that, to be honest with you. That's interesting.
And then, all right, here, let's get the eyebrows are. Let's see here. Eyebrows always kind of load the face with expression.
Okay.
All right. Now this is going to be. This is a cartoon version,
Right.
not a portrait.
Right. I get it. Do you have any favorite cartoons? Just the traditional stuff that we all have grown up watching.
You know, I was raised on, of course, Disney. I was raised on Dr. Seuss, though. Okay. Dr. Seuss is one of my favorites, and he's one of the great line artists. Okay. And actually, Dr. Seuss was a political cartoonist himself during the World War II era, and one of the greats.
We got about 1 minute left, so
we're almost.
Up and there we go. All right.
All right.
Wow, it's amazing how fast you can do that.
All right.
There you go.
Here, let me get the tie. What you think?
All right, looks good. Great job. Can you guys get a shot of that? Can we get on camera one right here? There you go. Wow, amazing how fast you're able to do it. Andy Marlette, he's a cartoonist. He's a political cartoonist for the Pensacola News Journal. Just doing one of me right there. My daughter will get a big kick out of that. Anyway, what a pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Well, thanks for having me, Jeff.
You bet. And of course, you can see his work in the Pensacola News Journal on a regular basis on pnj.com or the old-fashioned way in your driveway or on the newsstands by picking up a physical copy of the Pensacola News Journal. You can see more of our conversations online at wsre.org/conversation, our conversations, I should say, as well as on YouTube and Facebook. I'm Jeff Weeks. Thank you so very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Take great care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Support for this program is provided in part by these corporate sponsors. And by viewers like you.